Panel is Stephen Olikara, a senior fellow for political reform at the USC Schwarzenegger Institute and co-host of the group chat. Also joining me is political consultant Elizabeth Ashford. Welcome back, both of you. Good to see you. Let's talk about Virginia first. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic minority leader who wants to be the Speaker of the House, was on Laura Coates Live in our last hour. Here's what he had to say.
Well, this is a temporary measure that was a response to Donald Trump's efforts to rig the midterm elections. We needed to stop the MAGA power grab.
So we saw redistricting in Texas when Donald Trump wanted to see that happen. That helped the Republicans. Then your boss, Speaker Robert Rivas, and California Governor Gavin Newsom, others here, put on Prop 50 to do redistricting here. Now we see redistricting in Virginia. What do you make of all this? And is this really healthy for democracy?
Well, I think it's very healthy for democracy because, I mean, we're doing this at the ballot box. I think that, it's sort of like mess around and find out Donald Trump, and this was an effort to pull things back so that he could keep control. And the response has been really robust. We saw it here in California. It was an overwhelming win. I just think that there is this innate American sense that, you can win, but you kind of have to try to win fairly. I think Americans feel pretty strongly about that. So I think that, these efforts to push back on Trump's agenda, I think are very patriotic and obviously really bearing fruit in Virginia.
Your whole thing is like sort of nonpartisan, let's be nuanced, let's cut through the noise. I mean, this is just an expansion of partisanship around the country. Doesn't it just show that the country's even more tribal these days?
That's right. These gerrymandering wars aren't going to lead to a good place. Now, I get the Democratic impulse, which is the Republican elites started this in Texas. And if you go even further back in 2010, when Republicans took over a lot of state houses, like my home state of Wisconsin, they gerrymandered a ton of maps. So I get the Democratic impulse, but here's the thing. If Republicans are getting drunk on gerrymandering and Democrats are going to join the party, it's the people who feel the hangover, and that's not good. The reason why at the Schwarzenegger Institute we talk about terminating gerrymandering is that cheating voters is just not the right way to go. And what really happens ultimately is these parties win, but the people lose out.
But yet it seems like the parties in both states, all the Republican states in them, are like, let's do more of it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, in Virginia, it passed by a very narrow margin. You would expect, given the Democratic wave that we're seeing right now, it would have passed with more votes, but this was less than 1% in Virginia. I was talking to a Virginia voter today who's a moderate, has voted for Democrats before, but did not support this because as an independent himself, he said this is offending him. It's corruption in a sense, and that's not good for our democracy.
Speaking of process, another interesting thing happening in the House. We've seen these 3 members out in a week, all of them facing expulsion votes, which is why they decided to get out before they were expelled by their colleagues. But all of them also saying, look, we didn't even get a hearing. We didn't get a chance to present the evidence. You all are, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. How is this fair? What do you think about that?
I mean, it seems to me like in at least a couple of the cases, they decided to plead out, right? There was just not a desire to go all the way to trial and sort of get the public censure that was, looked like it was on the horizon. And, obviously there's some ethical problems, that we have. I mean, we had somebody who is alleged to be somebody who attacks women almost become the lead gubernatorial candidate in California because, ethics issues in the House had been either swept under the carpet or not discussed enough or not looked into enough. And so, I think probably for the good in the long run, because these people continue their careers and if ethics issues can follow you all the way.
Yeah, I mean, but maybe also the idea of rushing to judgment.
Yeah, well, I think in the case of the recent resignations today, the Congresswoman, or you look at Eric Swalwell or Tony Gonzalez, these are cases where they knew that they were going to get expelled, and so they preempted that by resigning. The interesting thing to look at here is how ethics is now, I think, going to be a bigger issue. Now, of course, these resignations didn't start that. You look at the Trump administration, the Trump family, there are a lot of conflicts of interests that are, I think, offensive to the American people. And so now you see people like John Ossoff, Ro Khanna, James Tallarico. These are key voices in the Democratic Party who are rising not only in the 2026 cycle, but potentially in 2028. And I think this is one of the most potent, unifying issues for America, is to recreate a sense of trust in our government.
But do you see, especially among the Republican base, any sort of aversion to this idea of like a Trump grift? I mean, in terms of people actually voting differently because of that.
So here's my theory on that. I think there's less of a concern on the Republican side. The reason why it's interesting on the Democratic side is there is this sort of sense that they're the quote-unquote pro-democracy party, that they're on the right side of these ethics issues, speaking from a sort of higher place. But I need to make clear here that Democrats are not on that high ground anymore. And I think it's really important that regardless of which party you're in, the voters need to be able to trust the process. And we've lost that. Americans feel like this whole process is corrupt.
Yeah, and maybe it's time to ban stock trading in Congress and other things like that, which some Democratic leaders, including Nancy Pelosi, have stopped from happening over the years. And that's criticism of that whole process as well. Speaking of California, an interesting governor's race that is really unclear what's going to happen next. There's been sort of this wait for Pelosi and other members of the Democratic establishment to get behind somebody. Robert Rivas, who you work for, who's the Speaker of the Assembly, got behind Javier Becerra today. But Betty Yee, who just got out of the race yesterday, got behind Tom Steyer today. Here's some of both of those videos.
We have a strong Democratic field for governor, but right now we need someone ready on day one. Javier Becerra is that leader.
California should feel very comfortable about where we're headed in this near term, and I'm just really proud to support you.
How do you make sense of what's happening in this state right now?
Well, clearly no candidate is consolidating support. I mean, what voters of California do is that if they're watching a sports game or any kind of thing on TV, they're seeing Tom Steyer ads. Becerra clearly
spending over $130 million so far, may get to $200 million before the primary is over.
He's spent a lot on politics over the last 15 years. I've watched it closely. There seems to be no end in sight to that. Becerra is clearly surging right now. I think also another wild card is Matt Mahan, who I've known over the years. He's building an interesting coalition of pragmatic moderates. But I think the deeper issue that people aren't looking at is when you look at a state as large as California, to build name ID in such an expensive set of markets, it comes down to money. And Tom Steyer is able to exploit what I consider to be a loophole in the campaign finance system where you can donate unlimited amounts of money to your own campaign. Contrast that, by the way, with New York City, also expensive. A candidate like Mamdani can emerge because there's a 6-to-1 matching program there. So if you want to see different kinds of leaders, not billionaires running our politics, you need those types of changes.
And yet, Elizabeth, Tom Steyer, despite all that money spent, is not very far ahead, according to some polls, basically in a tie right now.
Right.
Why do you think that is? It seems like there's a ceiling on the Tom Steyer support, a ceiling on the Katie Porter support, no matter what happens.
Right. Well, I think that, up until a couple of days ago, the narrative was, oh gosh, the people who are, have the most experience and are potentially the best, set to run the state are polling really low. We've seen that now reverse course, and that's very important. And I think what that allows to have happen is folks like the Speaker and the 14 legislators that joined him today to step up and say, this is our guy, this is his time. Politics and campaigns are a momentum game. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you are running slow or running fast. It matters when you cross that finish line. Mm-hmm. That's the time that matters. And so we can do big dissections of, quote unquote, the chaos of this case, of this race. But I mean, really, it's about, you're starting to see consolidation behind a highly qualified person to be governor. I don't think there's an amount of money that can be spent to necessarily talk Californians into doing something they don't intuitively feel is right. The road to the governor's office has been littered with the bodies of wealthy people for decades. And that's the thing. And so I see this playing out in the same way.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the weeks ahead. Of course, CNN has a debate on May 5th.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you very much. We look forward to that conversation. It's important to get these issues out there. Stephen, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here tonight. We'll be back with more of the story right after this.